following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system created by Fantasy Flight Games and produced by Edge Studios. A show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both a player's and a GM's perspective. I am Tony Fanning, and with me as always are my good friends and co-hosts, Chris Holmes, Stephen Dragonspawn. Homie, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I cooked egg. All right, man. Cooked some meat for you.
Oh.
Put it in a vacuum sealed that shit, freezing it. Gonna be bringing it to you in a week and a half.
I've never said this before in my life.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see my best friend's meat.
Awesome. Well, to smell it, to taste it, to cook it. Anyways, I know.
Put it in your mouth.
We got brisket. We're gonna have some pulled pork. We're gonna have some rib meat. Yeah. Anyways.
And when you stop by Kalamazoo here in a couple weeks, you will be treated to the wonder that is the One Well Brewing Company, because that's where we're going to go to dinner.
Sweet. My treat, by the way. My treat.
Oh, convince my wife of that. But anyhow.
Oh, I will. Don't worry. I'll be sneaky. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, doing pretty good. Oh, had my buddy Kyle run some Genesys for us in Roll20, actually, Saturday night. The Shadowrun stuff. So he had some maps and stuff all figured out in there. It worked pretty good. I think we kind of worked through some of it, and it's pretty fun, man. Pretty fun. And how you doing, Stefan? You're on location again tonight.
Yes, I'm on location in beautiful downtown Bloomfield, Ontario.
Nice.
With the crickets in the background.
I hear them.
Oh, yep. And no, I'm doing good. We've got the new puppy. There's progress there. He's about, we've had him for about almost 3.5 weeks. Progress is made. And then in other more role-playing type news, I finally finished working on a good portion of my adaptation for Dragonstar, which was a Fantasy Flight game setting for D&D 3.5. and adapting it to Genesys. So I've done it. Tony, as well as a few others. Tony, thank you, by the way, for some proofreading. So I did the corrections and modified. Hey, every little bit helps. As well as you guys participated in supplying me with a couple of very interesting NPCs to go in the adversary section.
Yep. And that actual play was pretty fun, dude.
Yeah. Good. And So I put it up there on a Dropbox folder, and the link is in the Fantasy Flight Game forum, on our Twitter feed for Fantasy, on my personal Twitter feed, but you can find the link on our Finding the Narrative Twitter account as well.
I'll throw it in the show notes. You know what? I'll throw it in the show notes. Send it to me later, or I'll find it.
And the link is also in MeWe as well on our MeWe page.
Sweet.
So it's all over there. So some people have already made some comments. Check it out if you want. I mean,
saying the fuck? No, right?
Yeah. I included the galaxy map and a little table of equipment. So I've adapted a little bit to it. And
cool.
Yeah.
How you doing, Tony?
I'm very happy with that. So Tony, what about you?
Wow.
I'm doing great. I got myself a bit of a buzz. I got home a little bit ago from One Well and continued my drinking when I got home. I only had 2 at the bar.
Okay.
With my dinner. So no drinking and driving here. But anyhow.
What are you drinking? What are you drinking right now?
I am drinking a Dr. Butters.
Awesome.
So it is
we'll have to put that on the
Diet
menu.
Dr. Pepper.
Right?
Peanut butter whiskey and some butterscotch schnapps.
Say that 3 times, 5 times real fast. I have an Epsilon sour, by the way, in honor of our episode tonight, which is what, Tony?
we are going to be revisiting the world of Tales of the Epsilon Eclipse that we haven't been to in a while. Naughty Crips. That's the
This is going to be
The gangster version.
gangster version.
Tony's
yes.
not drunk or anything, everybody. He's fine.
And the name of our episode 64, Pay Your Tab, in
Yeah.
which we will be investigating how to incorporate the obligation mechanic from Star Wars Edge of the Empire and reskin it for Genesis to be a tab system for our game,
Nice.
our setting.
All right. Well then. Well, let's get into it, and we boost the signal next, right? Got a few.
Yeah. Get on with it!
All right. So we are boosting the signal now. Where Stefan, not Sharon is Sharon. It's Stefan is sharing all the Genesis news out on the Foundry and review some products. What do you got for us tonight?
All right. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I think Sharon is your drag name, or at least it will be from now
Yours?
on.
Do you have another twin sister? Do you have a second
No.
sister?
No, I've already got my my drag name, so no. But yes, I do. I did have a few things that are new on the Foundry. So I got 3 of them that came out recently. The first one is a nice supplement for the Android Shadow of the Beanstalk setting called Cybernetics and Gmod by Lee Ironside.
Nice.
So in these pages, you'll find even more stats and descriptions of cybernetics and Gmod implants and the rules to go with them. And I know that's one of the things Tony was sort of bemoaning when we reviewed Android. Is like, there's not enough. There's a few good pieces, but there's not enough. So there's more in this book.
Daddy needs more.
Exactly. I need my mods. Come on. So that's available for $4.99 USD. The link in the show notes as well. And then we've got something more generic called the Genesis Toolset by Madman Games. So this is more advantages and threats in a handy tables that don't have the name of the person, but they use at their table that they expanded on what's already existing for the Genesis Core book.
More ways to spend your advantages and threats.
Exactly.
Cool.
So and in a nifty table, like he says, so you don't have to sometimes invent it on the fly, or at least have it be standardized or consistent.
Cool.
So that's also available, $4 for you for that, and it's agnostic. It can be used for all types of settings, and it includes also for triumphs and despairs as well.
Cool.
Very nice.
And finally, we've got from the series called Boost. They're coming up with their 3rd edition of their Boost supplements called the Deep Dive this time. Called Community Project. That's their name, the name of their organization. And they're offering it for free. And so anything to do with the deep ocean.
Oh.
So if you have a setting that, or even a short story arc or adventure that happens to be set under the waves, this can help. You've got lots of equipment, vehicle, some adversaries, and even a little micro adventure that he includes in there. So whoever you are, community project, community at large, thank you very much. Nice. So you can check those out. So we hope that this little segment has boosted the signal enough to put some dollars into your pockets, even if it's for free, or at least putting you a bit more on the radar for others to check it out. And that's it for boosting the signal today.
Excellent. Well done, buddy.
All right. So next segment is our slightly modified Books of Genesis. This is where we normally break down a section of one of the books of Genesis, bit by bit. And this time we're focusing on adding an element from the Star Wars Edge of the Empire RPG to our own custom setting, Tales of the Epsilon Eclipse, clips. Ha, ha, ha.
Aha, there we go.
So if you have it, open the page of your book of Edge of the Empire to page 38 and follow along with the bouncing balls. Ball.
So what we decided when we were creating our setting was that we were going to incorporate an element of the Edge of the Empire system that personally is my favorite part of the Edge of the Empire. They kind of did it in Shadow of the Beanstalk by kind of incorporating one element of it, and that is the obligation mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
So, homie, what is obligation?
Well, think of it as something your character would kind of concerns them, could concern them, could come up in a session, can think about, could be a debt they might owe. There could be a bounty out on them. But it's just something, more than anything, narratively, that is something that your character has in the back of their mind, maybe something they're running from, maybe they're running towards. That could be used in a lot of different ways and can really bring in neat stories, to be honest. You know? Some story arcs.
Well, how do we incorporate that? What element? I mean, we have a name for it in our setting.
Yes, we're going to call it. We're going to call it your bar tab. So it's what
right.
you owe. It's basically what you owe the bar. It's what you owe the Epsilon Eclipse, right?
Well,
in
a way.
It's your personal tab. It's what you keep. What keeps tabs on you.
Yep.
What you're keeping tab on yourself. I like to think of it as if your motivations are what get you out the door, if those are the things that keep you adventuring or make you an adventurer, right? Mm-hmm. Your bar tab or your obligation, as it's formerly known, is going to be what's keeping you an adventurer.
Cool.
What's keeping you away from quitting adventuring and going home? Hey, I made a bunch of money. I should quit. Go home.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I got this other thing I got to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because all this money that I made, I have to pay back.
Yeah. Or anything that really puts pressure on your character more than anything, because there's a mechanic that we'll get into that kind of is tied to it.
So, Stefan, what does a bar tab consist of?
What do you mean consist of? Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Consists of two parts.
Right. Well, it has, of course, a title. And, of course, with that title comes in a narrative description, because just saying oath is vague. So that's the first part. And then there's the more mechanical numeric value, which represents how big the obligation or bar tab is.
It's a magnitude. You could call it a magnitude, if you will.
Yeah.
Like I say, I have a black and brown ignorant dickhound that lives in my kitchen and eats linoleum. That is the narrative description.
Don't talk about Sean that way. Come on, man.
No, I'm not talking about my son. I'm talking about my fur child, Odin.
I know.
His title would be Odin. That description would be the narrative description, and his numeric value would be 130 pounds with an exclamation point. But anyhow.
Well, that's your bar tab. You have to keep him in the lifestyle that he's grown accustomed to.
Yeah, I got to keep buying him new linoleum to eat.
Yeah. Different flavors every month.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
Nice.
But anyhow, so the way you do this in Edge of the Empire is you determine either randomly or by choosing which one of these aspects of an obligation you're going to do. So in our case, for Bar Tab, I've just copied the table, but incorporated it into our setting.
Right.
So let's go through the table kind of step by step a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, and this is what you'll be creating. This is like the first step of character creation. This is before you choose what your archetype is going to be or what your career is going to be.
You're going to have a character concept.
Yeah, you'll have a concept, and then this will come next.
Right, and you can have an idea in your concept of what you want your archetype and career to be.
Absolutely.
Because those are very much descriptors, but you haven't even written any of that stuff down on your character sheet.
Exactly. So you'll have your
You're going to do
bar
this
tab.
first.
So the first type of bar tab, which is fairly appropriate, is addiction.
Yeah.
You can be alcoholic. You just like
It can be.
It can be.
You could be a gambling addict.
Yeah.
You could have a drug addiction for a rare drug that you can only get from going to a bar that hops between worlds.
You might just be a sticky fingered thief that just likes to break the law and steal shit.
Yeah.
You're just addicted to the rush of it, maybe the excitement of it.
That's it. Or, ooh, shiny, mine.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Basically, the important part of this particular obligation is that there's an immediate result when you don't deal with it. When it comes up and you don't deal with it, there's an immediate result, and that is withdrawals. Your character's going to have withdrawals, and the exact nature could depend on the addiction. But the character will find it increasingly difficult to concentrate on even mundane tasks until they've gotten their fix of whatever it is. Maybe you got a need for speed. You're a speed addict, and
You have in your speeder or whatever, or on your horse.
You got to race somebody. You got to steal a car to race somebody. Just got to do it.
That's right. Or you got to get on your horse and just ride, right? But mechanically, this difficulty will come in the form of anywhere between like 1 setback die to maybe 3 setback dice. Where you would add to skill checks.
We're trying to resist your urges.
Right.
Now, it could be a great narrative aspect, and it should be handled with some, as anything in this particular setting, should be handled with some adult mindsets. Is that if you're going to have a character who is a drug addict, handle that drug addiction with a bit of an adult mindset and understand that it's not always a funny thing, but it can be a funny thing. We have, particularly in one of my other games, we have someone who has a drug addiction, and he goes with the positive aspects of being able to be like super hopped up on speed, as well as the negatives. He will freaking flop out in the middle of combat.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, he will. And this is like, one of those like touchy subjects, as Tony was saying, but this is the stuff you talk about in session 0, when you're creating the characters. Hey, is this theme okay with everybody or whatever?
Most assuredly. If someone has a problem with you using this one, just avoid it.
Yeah.
Re-roll when you come across it randomly.
Exactly.
If people at the table really can't explore that subject in the role-playing setting or don't want to, that's a conversation you have before you play, and then if they don't want to and you want to respect that, avoid it.
Yep.
Well, that's it. It's like handling a situation or a scene where 2 characters are getting, attracted to each other. You can gloss it over. It's like, okay, fade the screen. Next day or an hour later, you're smoking a cigarette. Done. Some people just like that. Some people go into the full descriptions. All right. Well, whatever's more comfortable at your table.
To each their own.
Exactly. Exactly.
What's next?
Stefan, what do you have next?
Betrayal most foul.
Nice.
So but this one can handle, like they say, it can be in 2 ways. It can be handled either the character is the target of a deep and personal betrayal, or the character is the one who betrayed the other party.
Yeah, that's a spin.
So work out how that happened, with whom, or maybe an organization, depending on maybe the severity, how big the betrayal was.
Yep.
Yeah, fleshing these out is a great way to tie. Fleshing them out is a great way to tie your characters together. Someone that you may have betrayed in the past, maybe one of the other characters owes a debt to, or the key is, though, not to tie them together
to each other
in a way that you're tied to the other players. You don't want your betrayal to be that of your party in the past.
No.
Right.
Unless you and your GM think that's fun and cool, generally you should avoid having your bar tab be to another player.
Right. But two characters could have this betrayal bar tab type, but they could be completely separate, as in maybe one is the one who did the betraying, or the other one is the betrayee who was betrayed. So you can still have the same type, just completely separate or different, if you will. So that's okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sometimes it could be just mildly one person betrayed a certain person or a small organization. The other player has a debt to that same person.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
Next, we have blackmail. Someone has discovered one of the PC's dirty secrets and is using that knowledge for some sort of gain. So that means you're kind of going to have dirty secrets. And you and your GM are going to have to flesh that out. And every single one of these requires that you and your GM talk, and your player and your party in a session 0, talk it through a little bit. If you want to do it one-on-one with just the GM, that's cool. Pull them aside.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I want to do this. But blackmail is that to make matters worse, the blackmailer possesses evidence that could possibly leak out, whether it's bank records or video or a weapon used in a crime, so on. But it's something drastic, something horrible that your character doesn't want to come to light that happened in the past. It could be something that they were falsely framed for, could be true.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. The important thing is that somebody knows about it and they're using it against you.
Yep. To either get
what's next, homie?
Favors or money. Okay, well, next would be a bounty. So for whatever reason, your character has a price on his head, or her head, or its head. Okay?
Or heads.
In the form of some sort of legal warrant, with like a bounty hunting organization or whatever. Or maybe it's a
criminal contract.
It could be a criminal contract. That's right. That's, hey, somebody's out to get you. Maybe it's somebody who felt his honor was violated in some way. But again, this is something that puts pressure on your character, always has the back of his mind, and then talk it over. What did they do to deserve this bounty, or what didn't they do? Were they framed for it?
Well, because the bounty sometimes doesn't matter. It's like, why is that guy in the corner of the bar looking at me? Is he looking to collect on that bounty?
Yeah, I pulled the obligation mechanic into the Shadowrun game that I'm playing, and one of the guys created a bounty where a Go Gang set him up. Somebody set him up in a Go Gang. Now he's just got a bounty on him that's worth like $1 million on him. So, it's those things that are cools. So what's next?
Then we've got criminal. So basically, your character has a criminal record, or was accused of a crime. Maybe he didn't commit it, just a bit like the bounty, but somehow he still has legal troubles because of it.
Yep.
So this could be settled by either paying some legal costs, or bury evidence, or find a way to prove his innocence.
Yep.
It wasn't me. It was the one-armed man.
Yep.
Got to prove yourself innocent. Next is debt. Debt is an easy one to deal with. character owes someone a great deal. It may not even be a monetary sum. Could be a favor. An unlimited number of favors.
Yeah.
It could be one of those where you owe a debt to a crime lord so severe that he will give you an impossible task to complete. And then if you complete it, you can then retire.
That's right.
Yeah.
And watch out for your fucking dog because they're going to come kill it. All right? Oh, sorry. Whew.
And there's a
I'm
dog, too.
in another genre, I think.
I was leading you there, buddy.
I hear you. I got you. Great minds think alike.
No, but the debt, the character who owes a debt, this debt should be substantial. Okay, this isn't something they could pay off with the monies from a single job. You want this debt to be high.
Yeah, it's not just a cup of coffee.
Right. Whether it's gambling debts, maybe you borrowed money to buy a something really nice, like a cyber suit or a cyber sneak suit or whatever. Whatever works for you. Yeah, vehicle of some kind. Does not matter. It's what matters is who you owe the debt to.
Yeah.
And that should definitely be an NPC that the GM puts some stats to at some point.
Yeah, because he
An
might want to get rid of that debt in some way or another, not just by paying it off. Right?
That's right.
So this
Next.
Yeah, so the next one can be confused with yet another one on this table. I'm talking about duty bound is an obligation, a bar tab type. Though there's also, and I'm going to mention the other one, which we could talk. Maybe we'll talk about both of these together because they're fairly similar, but there's a slight difference between them. The other one is an oath. Now, the difference between being duty bound and taking an oath is being duty bound, you are basically legally tied or ritualistically bound to like an organization's duty. Like if you're in the military, there are duties, you have to go by certain codes, follow the rules in such a way. And
you're a contractor. You're been contracted to build a psychic construct for someone.
There you go. Yeah, you have to fulfill that. Now,
on the guild
and now on the flip side, an oath is a personal oath you're taking that shapes your views and your actions in the world. Your moral, they say that a moral view of the world could be an oath to a deity or an oath to an oath to an organization, like taking the oath of the Sequoia, maybe. But whatever.
The key thing about the difference between duty bound for a GM and oath is, as duty bound, you're putting someone in opposite. When you incorporate it into the adventure, you're putting someone in opposition to an organization or the ideals of, or that contract that they're doing.
Right.
And the other is you're putting someone in a moral conundrum versus their own personal oath system.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So
what's next, Stefan?
Next is family. Very important. Character has deep ties to their own family, and that requires, of course, time and attention to take care of. So this could be providing some care for siblings or parents, managing inheritance, some family business, or just, between squabbling members of the family trying to settle that dispute. So the family things can come up, as they sometimes do.
And I think the key thing with that is to have, and what helps me if family comes up for one of my characters is to make that family large and give them some sort of power over you, in that they have to call on you for help from them. Whether it's you're the one guy who can convince Cousin Joe to not juggle chainsaws in front of a crowd blindfolded, or whether you're whether you're the one that everybody in the family calls when they need a friend because you have an ear and you're constantly stressed out by your family calling you. whatever that element is, it's large number of people that are reliant on you for something.
Yep.
Yeah. Cousin Billy Bob went through another portal, and you have to go and get him.
Yet again.
Again. All right.
That's right.
So the next one is an entire mechanic for Shadow of the Beanstalk, but in this, it's one teensy element, and that is the favor. Your character has deep ties to someone. You perhaps they're officials who look the other way while you smuggled something, or you're a friend that you got out of prison, or doesn't matter. Your favors just keep stacking up. You owe someone, and you owe them big. Whether you got that one friend who he saved your life so many times you can't count, and he needs your help.
Yeah.
And you just have to say yes.
Yep, because you owe him.
That's right. Owe him a favor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now this next one.
The next one, Stefan, you could take it because I actually took two. I took Doombound and Oath.
Oath is next.
Oath is technically next, and we went into that. So, Stefan, why don't you take it after Oath?
All right, the obsession. So your player character has an unhealthy obsession that, of course, tends to interfere with his life, whether it's say a celebrity, political movement, cultural icon. Has to keep up to date with social media.
Nice.
Or he has to, So he has to pursue this, or else, almost like an addiction, but less physically severe. But still, he has to satisfy it, or else his health, his finances don't go well.
Like if you're, say, the kind of guy who can't get more than 3 sessions of role-playing in a week and you slip into a deep depression, you may have an obsession.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
That might be me.
What do you mean
I'll
I
tell you,
can't
man,
game every 2 days?
That's right. I think Daryl and I might have it bad. I'm pretty sure. We might have that obsession.
Yeah, you're codependent on each other, too.
Or gaming, I know.
Yeah.
But obsession tends to get along. This person with this obsession tends to get along really well with others who share this interest. Now, I had, and that's funny, but I had in one of my Star Wars games 2 players who rolled this obsession, and so they actually took the entire group down the path of their obsession.
What?
Because 2 players rolled it and they chose the same one, and that was my 2 sons. One was playing a outlaw tech,
Okay.
and the other was playing a big game hunter. And they were so obsessed with creating a big game hunting holographic TV show.
Awesome.
That they created this holographic big game TV show, and it became all consuming for the entire campaign for the other players too. They just sucked everyone in.
That's
and
great.
They created this holographic TV show called Let's Get Dangerous.
Oh, that's
where
great.
they would proceed. One would proceed to film the other hunting big game across the galaxy.
Of course.
That's
So
awesome.
that's a great one for 2 players if you roll it together, or if one rolls it and the other wants to choose it, and you want to be buddies and have the same shtick.
Right.
Obsession is a great one to do as a pair.
Right.
Well, so they do mention that they get along well with someone else who shares that same interest. So
Yeah, that's good. That's pretty good. That's pretty fun.
when 2 people say, "Oh, you're obsessed with the Marvel Cinematic Universe," okay, cool. Let's talk about all the nuances. Whereas other people are going, "What the hell are they talking? I know it's English, but I have no idea what they're saying."
Nice.
So the last one is responsibility. Your character has a responsibility bar tab, which feels like a strong sense of accountability or relationship to a person, place, or thing. This could be a strong connection to a mentor or a strong desire to care for orphans in a given location. Like, You're a couple of brothers who were raised by a Catholic orphanage, and you just feel indebted to them. So you're going to go do gigs across the galaxy while trying to figure out how to make money to save Sister Mary's orphanage, a.k.a. the Blues Brothers.
There's that.
You could have and this kind of ties in with family, you could have a child with this, with a responsibility, a child or a very demanding pet that requires your constant attention. This kind of fits into the responsibility. Maybe it's an elderly person that you are responsible for taking care of. All great. I can think of, I had a character when I first started playing Star Wars. I had a character. His uncle was an alcoholic, and he dragged him with him on various. Man was elderly. He dragged him with him onto the starship and onto various missions to keep him from getting in trouble.
Nice.
And he was my responsibility. Everybody was like, "Hey, he's yours. You take care of him." And he came up quite a bit.
Oh, that's funny. That's pretty good.
But this is all on a table. So this all goes together on a table. And each one of these gets a percentile value. And if you roll randomly, each one of these is 8%, taking us all the way from 0, 1 to 96%. And then the last 4%, which is 97 to double zeros on percentile dice, is this on this chart is roll twice. And then your starting bar tab will be split between two different ones.
Yeah, two different origins,
if you're
Different types.
choosing, that's all your choices. If you're rolling random, this last choice
It's possible.
is possible, and I'll describe how to divide those values up in a moment.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, burgers. Yeah, and
Nice.
speaking of dividing, we did talk. So those are the titles and the narrative. That was like kind of part one. The part two would be the magnitude, or I guess our bar tab, the value of your tab. What do you owe? What do you owe? Right. So there's a table.
What is the value?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a table. Yep. On page, I don't know what page that is. Page
40.
40 of the Edge of the Empire book. There's this table 2.2, which we'll put that table into our setting document, a similar table.
Yep.
And that is your starting obligation, or in our case, starting bar tab. And that varies. That magnitude varies based on the number of PCs in your party.
Yep.
So overall number of PCs in the total party will determine whether that starts higher or lower
For each character.
Per player, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if you have two, so if you have two PCs, each player character will start with a magnitude of 20 for a total party obligation of 40. Okay?
Yeah.
Starting.
Yes. Base.
Starting.
Yeah, starting base.
Mm-hmm.
What's
And
next?
if you have a party of 4, then it's 10 each.
Yep.
And you still get your base of 40.
Yep. Party of 4
Party
or
of 3
5.
is 15.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Party of 4 or 5 is 10. Party of 6 plus is only 5.
Correct. Because, like you said, Tony, you can actually increase your obligation, your bar tab to start with, and get more stuffs. And what would that? And what is that? What would that be?
Well,
So
go ahead, Tony.
it's done one of 3 ways, and we can each go into each one. But the first choice is option 1. You can increase your bar tab by +5 and gain either 5 starting XP or 500 starting credits.
Cool.
That's option 1.
Mm-hmm. Option 2 is that you can increase your bar tab by 10, and then you gain either 10 starting XP or 1,500 starting credits. You can buy more stuff.
And then then option 3 is increasing your bar tab by 10. You could gain both plus 5 experience points, starting XP, and 500 starting credits.
So
Now, this is where I need to note, this is starting XP.
Yep.
So that means it can go into expending on your character's
characteristics.
And it can also go into it also can't be spent to raise any skills over the second rank.
Exactly.
No, that's still, the limit is still 2 ranks.
Yep.
And then the final thing is you can never raise your bar tab by more than double what it is at start. So if you have 6+ characters in your group, everyone may only do option 1.
Yep.
So that is, they start with 5 XP or 5 5 bar tab. They start with a 5 magnitude bar tab, 5 value. They may increase it by 5 to either gain 5 additional XP or 500 starting credits.
Yep. That's it. So their base starting obligation is now 10 per player.
So how does this work? I mean, we've talked about what it is.
Yep.
But how is it incorporated in the game? What is it to the GM? What is it to the players? You guys have played around with obligation a lot more as a GM, so you have more experience. For me, as only dealt with it as a player.
Right.
But you guys as GM have worked behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Well,
so Tony,
go ahead.
So Tony, what is the first thing? So now that all of my players have obligations set up and magnitudes set up, values
for
their bar tab. What do you do as a GM? Next, what's the first thing you would do?
Well, first thing you do as a GM is you help flesh them all out.
Right.
Once you have them fleshed and you have fleshed out and you have their values, then you're going to make a chart.
Yep.
That chart is a percentile chart that you're going to roll at the beginning of every session.
Yep.
So you're going to take first player, who doesn't have to be, I put the names in alphabetical order, go left, right around the table when you actually can play face-to-face again. Or in the case of me,
Skype.
I just randomly look up on Skype and go, okay, that guy, you're first.
Yeah.
And then I go around the pictures, so to speak, from there. You're going to put in their name, their player name, character name, whichever you prefer. I put both.
Yep.
You're going to put in their type of bar tab, what it is, that it is. You don't have to put the full description down, just the one-word description. It's a debt. It's a responsibility. It's an obsession. Doesn't matter. Just put that down. That's to give you a clue, to remind you. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to put that value down as a percentage block. Right. So if, let's say, we have 5 players in our group, and none of them opted to buy additional. So all 5 players started at 10.
Yep.
Therefore, player 1 is going to be 0-1 through 10. Correct?
Yep.
No. They're going to be 0-1 through 9. Right?
Nope.
0-1 through 10. That's right.
Because you want 10.
Yes. I'm just messing with you. I knew exactly how this works. Then the second player is going to be 11 through 20. Third player, 21 through 30, and so on, all the way up to the maximum value of 50.
Right.
Yeah. And that creates your percentile dice table for it.
Mm-hmm. And that gives
when I read the obligation, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that gives you your group obligation value. So you add up what everybody's magnitude is, you get a value there, and then at the beginning of the session, you'll roll a percentile die, and if that percentile die is greater than the group's obligation, The
tab.
the bar tab. Sorry, I need to keep using bar tab. Greater than the bar tab value of the group, then somebody's bar tab will not come up. But if it's lower than that value, then you look in your table to see whose specific bar tab is going to come up in this session, whether it's narratively or something else. So, and what were you going to say, Stefan? I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. When I read up the Obligation and the Edge of the Empire book, I think I read that if there's one player who has a higher starting obligation or starting an obligation total, they start off at the top of the table. So that's the one that starts at 1 to. If one of them has a 15, they start with 1 to 15, and then those who have less, 10 or 5, are added afterwards until.
Yeah, however you want to do it. It's all random anyway.
That's right. They just recommend it.
That's a suggestion for
a
good way to start it off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, as long as you capture that extra value, as long as you have it on there somewhere, you're good.
Right.
You're good to go.
Right.
With it.
So, once you have that group threshold,
mm-hmm.
And the check is going to be made at the beginning of every session to see if one comes up. If none comes up, GM, continue your session as normal. You just continue it. Players, you continue as normal. Nothing happened. No one's bar tab is weighing on anyone.
Right.
However, if player 3, let's use an example. Player 3 in my group happens to be Stefan. Stefan, if your bar tab comes up, for your character, what that means, and for the group, what that means, for your character, you're going to reduce your strain threshold by 2.
Right.
That is a representation of the stress that your bar tab is having on you specifically.
Yeah.
The group is going to reduce their strain threshold, the rest of the group, by 1.
That's right, because you're complaining about it, or we have to go this way. Now we got to go satisfy that.
Yeah.
We got to look after you now a little more.
Oh, great! Uncle Carlos got drunk and passed out again in our freaking room and pissed everywhere. Now we all have to clean it up. Everybody's stressed, and the person whose responsibility is Uncle Carlos. Well, now they're feeling it double.
That's it.
Exactly.
And this is an interesting nuance. You actually reduce your strain threshold. That means you cannot recover that strain with advantage later in the game.
Correct.
Yeah, your threshold is just reduced by 2 or 1.
That's 2 or 1. That's it. Mm-hmm. So and you don't get to recover it until the session is over, and then your threshold goes back to normal.
And this is something that I completely forgot about. When you do make that, you're seeing it too, right? When you do make that bar tab roll, GM, hope for doubles. Because if you roll an 11 or a 22, what happens, Tony, if you roll doubles?
If you roll double digits, those decreased thresholds are doubled.
Mm-hmm.
So for the player in question, if their bar tab came up, they are decreasing their strain threshold by 4.
Holy crap.
And the party is decreasing their strain threshold by 2.
You do know that you do know that Mass's strain threshold is like 9 in our Star Wars game. So if his pops and doubles, he only is going to have 5 strain.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure that happens on a session where it's nothing but social combat.
Oh my God. Mass is just out. All right, I'm out. Fuck you guys. I'm done.
So Uncle Carlos didn't just thrash the room. He invited some buddies, and they really laid into it.
Oh yeah. Our room is filled with hobos. What the hell?
Yep. And they're spackling all over the place.
It's the hangover cranked up to 11.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, so that could get kind of harsh, but mechanically speaking, it's harsh, but narratively speaking, it could be so much fun. It could be so much
That's
fun.
the part where this comes in, and why most GMs love it, and why a ton of players love it.
Yeah.
Because GMs,
Or me.
you are going to take that element of their bar tab, whether it's that responsibility or that addiction or that debt, and you're going to incorporate it to be a part, if not the entire theme of that particular adventure. That particular session is going to come into play.
Somehow.
You don't have to do this every time. Sometimes maybe you had so much planned for the session you don't have any room for it. That's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to the story. Yeah.
Right. But if you roll them
it
doubles,
doesn't make.
if you roll them doubles, though, make sure you do something special, I would say.
Incorporate it. It's
Yeah.
incorporating the player's bar tab, aka obligation, into the session will have so many rewards. Number one, GM, it gives you a chance to really pick on an individual player character and flesh that character out and make that character feel unique to your story and feel unique to that player. Then as players, it is a great way to get the spotlight.
Yeah,
and tie them into the world, the campaign.
Mm-hmm. And to kind of flesh out that background, or flesh out that bar tab, what made your bar tab, and really dig into that character. If
you're like poor Stefan listening to Chris and I yammer and trying to get a word in edgewise throughout an entire session, like he does on the show here, and you need to be the spotlight, that is your chance. You now have an entire session dedicated to your character. And everybody else, stand aside.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's okay. I know how sometimes once in a while hog the spotlight, right, Sandra? Oh, yes, my darling. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, she's here, Sandra. Well, I didn't know we were going to have a guest on today.
Yeah. I didn't even know. Where did she pop out of?
Yeah.
She's gone.
And, and sometimes, I believe, Tony, you've done this, and I've done it too, is at the end of a session, I would roll obligation just to see if I would roll the bar tab for the next session to see if it does pop or comes up and gives me that time to work it in. Because that's something special.
Yeah, that's a good idea to do. Yeah, it gives you some prep time to think about how to incorporate.
A lot of GMs of Star Wars have said that works best for long ongoing campaigns.
Right.
If you're doing a one-shot or a small 4 or 5 session, 2-session adventure, roll at night of, incorporate it best you can, go with the flow.
Or at least if you do, make some notes as to, as you're prepping just a couple of sessions, whatever it might be, have a couple of elements ready. Hey, if this obligation pops up, hey, this could happen. Maybe this is a major PC that NPC that if somebody had a debt to, that's who they would have a debt to, or something,
Yeah, a bounty hunter shows up a little bit, and
have plan for having, if you're going to do that, plan for having multiple, if not all, of the bar tabs pop, so to speak.
Right.
Before you plan your session, or do like I do, which I do it regularly. I run a weekly Star Wars campaign for these guys, Edge of the Empire, for our friends Jamie Pearson, his friend Blaine Wagner, our friend of the show Daryl, and Chris. I run for them weekly, and I roll the week before, which gives me an entire week to incorporate that obligation, or in this case, bar tab, into the next session.
Right.
And it reduces the strain threshold of the player too. For a week, it's like, wow, what's Tony going to do? Oh no!
Well,
or
exactly.
Gives them the chance, like in the case of Jamie, he just is like, oh, I get to think of great ways to fuck everybody over,
which is always a good thing.
So there's 3 more little elements to this that I want to get into.
Yeah.
First of all, we kind of mentioned it. Yeah. And that is that the bar tab as a threshold. So your threshold is the group's total number of bar tab, all put together.
Yep.
So in the case of that 5-person party with each with 10 bar tab, that number's 50.
Yeah, at least 50.
That threshold can be used by the GM as a kind of a barometer of who will deal with them in social settings, or can be used as a way to put setback dice into certain social encounters.
Yep.
If a group's bar tab is really low, people who are on the up and up in society, businessmen, law enforcement, legal officials, port authorities, are going to be easier to deal with because they don't have a lot of hang-ups, so to speak.
You're not as infamous. You might be famous.
You're not as infamous.
Exactly.
No, that's it. They have less risk of being associated with you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
However, criminal organizations, seedier types, people who would, want to do things on the outside of society, the
scoundrels,
recluses, they're going to have less to do with you.
Yep.
And then inversely, with a high threshold, 80 plus, your group is going to have a lot harder time dealing with those uppity, paladin organizations, and an easier time joining the local thieves guild.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, the paladin will go, I'm sure you're accused of this crime just because you're around in this neighborhood. But no, I didn't do it. Yeah. I've heard about you.
That's right. You run with these other chuckleheads.
Yeah.
Come with me. Right. So that's using obligation as a your bar tab as a threshold.
What's next, homie?
Well, it's using your bar tab as a resource. So at the start, you can increase your bar tab to get those resources, whether it's more starting XP or more starting credits. But during the course of a campaign, you can take on more obligate or more. You can raise your bar tab even more. Make your bar tab.
Additional bar tabs have separate ones.
Separate ones. Yep. To gain that. Maybe you want that. Your lumberjack wants a nice, shiny, new, chainsaw or axe or whatever. You could probably take on a bar tab to owe somebody a favor. If they make this chainsaw for you or find this chainsaw for you or something along those lines.
Or the enchanted flannel armor.
GMs,
the flannel vestments. Yes, the flannel vestments.
The flannel vestments.
GMs, a great way to have the bar tab be a resource in play where you can kind of have it as a consequence for a failed group of checks, whether it be a skill challenge or be a social encounter. Your group is going in to talk to someone, and if they fail that social encounter, the consequence is they take on a new bar tab. One of the players must take on a new bar tab to owe that person a favor in order to move the adventure forward.
That's right. Been there, done that. If you listen to our last actual play, I believe my character took on a bar tab obligation during that social combat to come back and be a gladiator fight in one of the guys' fights for him.
Yeah,
that
it was
would be
one of the terms of the negotiation. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
A favor that you owed.
Yep.
You
agreed on a favor. There we go.
Yep, exactly.
And the last little nuanced rule about it, Stefan,
is what if it exceeds 100?
Build a 170 point percentile dice table, right?
Nope.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I'll work on that right away after the show.
Exactly.
No. There's ways a little bit around that as well, or how to play with it.
Yeah. So what happens if you do exceed that 100?
So your cap is 100.
Right.
If you exceed it, your players if their group threshold is above 100, they can't spend XP.
Exactly.
Because someone's is always going to come up.
Right.
Yep.
And if it comes up, you give them the opportunity to reduce it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the thing. When it comes up, you give them the opportunity to reduce it. Whether you're reducing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, it doesn't matter. The key is, though, the bottom cap is no player may reduce their bar tab below 5.
Yeah.
Correct.
Everyone says a minimum of 5, and the groups has a maximum of 100. And if they exceed that 100, they can't spend XP. If your group exceeds 100, they will quickly start resolving their bar taps.
Yes. Yes, they will. Exactly.
Because you can still dole out the XP. But
You give it all day long.
Oh, yeah, you can. Oh, you know what, guys? You actually earned 30 XP for this session. Oh, too bad you can't spend it.
Some excellent role-playing opportunities that you had. So
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
But
That talent you wanted? Nope.
If they successfully dealt with their, they had through the whole session, their threshold came up, or their strain threshold was reduced. They dealt with Uncle Carlos's bad behavior through the whole episode, and they dealt with it like a saint. And they were always kind and coddling to Uncle Carlos because they love him so dearly. And they were always heading off their friends to try and keep Uncle Carlos from pushing things into, a fist fight between party members.
Well, they want to stay in his will. That's why.
Then you definitely will want to reduce that number that the player has. As long as it isn't going below 5, reduce it some.
Exactly.
I have a rule of thumb, and that is if someone comes up, I'm always going to reduce it by 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, whatever, dude. Nice try. Mine came up
Hold
and you
on.
increased it by 5.
Hold on.
I think that's what
However,
you did, right?
if they fail to deal with it,
What?
if they fail to deal with it, or they they make it worse,
Yeah.
increase it by that much, or double if it's appropriate.
I couldn't help that it was dark. I couldn't protect that hut.
You guys ended up getting, in that particular session that you're bringing up, your characters failed to protect the hut, and you ended up all going to the hospital afterwards. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, I took on more debt because I had to pay for his fucking sled. Because his goddamn dude broke his like hover sled. It was my fault, apparently.
So, yes, if you had been more successful, then I would have reduced your threshold that time.
But we failed.
But that's a prime example, Chris. Thanks for bringing it up.
Oh, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, and it's kind of arbitrary, GMs, but reduce it by 2 or 3 points if they successfully dealt with the issue. If they didn't successfully, and they were like really bad at it, in the case of my group here, tack on another 5. If they were if it was just something that just came up and they moderately dealt with it, don't touch it. Leave it alone.
Yep. Sounds good. And I think I may include that in my Dragonstar campaigns.
Yeah.
I might use that.
I mean, it's my favorite of the systems that the Star Wars RPG uses. It has 3 that it uses. It has duty, which is it's fun, but it's not as fun. And then it has the morality system for the Jedis. And while that is fun for Force users, it's not fun for anything else. It really doesn't seem to me to work well in any other group.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, here's a question for you. A little bit of a sidebar, if you will.
Sidebar tab.
What about changing obligations? Sorry, changing your bar tabs during a campaign. How do you handle that?
That's a great one. Sometimes they may morph. Sometimes it may be that you've earned enough money to pay off your debt.
Yep.
Morph that into something else. Now
Right.
you have an obsession with making enough money to unseat the guy that you owed that much money to.
Right. Or maybe you actually, the reason why you have come into all that money is you screwed somebody over. Uh-oh, that's a betrayal obligation? Or your bar tab morphs into a betrayal on this other person.
Yeah,
exactly.
If it works within role-playing, within the narrative, even better,
Yeah.
Maybe your responsibility of that family member who's been bothering the shit out of you. Now, you eventually had to put Uncle Carlos into a treatment center because his alcoholism was just so. Now you have a debt.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Now it's morphed into a debt.
Yeah. Now, okay, Uncle Carlos is safe. He's always safe. That facility is going to keep an eye on him all the time.
Yeah.
But now you have this chewing debt of his ever living,
Or it could be a responsibility too, like the responsibility of keeping up the payments.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're saying that it was a responsibility, and it morphs into it.
Oh. Okay. Well,
but it morphs into a new responsibility. Here's a great one, Chris. Your character, Mass, and I hate to keep bringing up our current group, but it's a perfect example. Your character has a responsibility. His responsibility is going to change.
It sure will. Right now, he's responsible for a young, what do you call it? Marauder, mercenary kid,
of
his race, and that's going to be morphing into something else shortly.
Nice.
Yep. So yeah. So that's cool. So, that's why I brought it up.
It's a fluid system of incorporating that player character into the story, and if it isn't working for a particular player, or if it's organic for the story to do so, change it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So it's a great narrative tool for the GM and the players to tell a better story. To be honest, it really does. It really does tell better stories. This mechanic does.
Yep. Now that I understand a bit more, I do like it even more. So,
do you have any other questions? Do you have any questions about it, Stefan? Are there any parts of it that you're a little still fuzzy on that maybe some of our listeners might still be, or are you kind of getting it?
I do find that some of the obligations are very similar. Like we already mentioned,
we did
duty bound and oath.
Duty bound and oath. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And those you could again duty bound and oath. You could think of duty bound. You are duty bound to an external organization. Right. An oath, you are taking an oath more upon personal. Yourself. It's more personal. It's more internal.
Yeah.
And then we
have code of honor or.
Yeah. Now, responsibility and family, those are very close because you can have a responsibility to a kin, a sister, a cousin, or wife and kids or something. That would be a family. But then other responsibilities, like Tony said, maybe.
Yeah, it could be outside the family, but still a very close friend. A buddy in the police force or military that saved your bacon, and but that would be more of a favor. But still, a responsibility. Maybe he lost his legs in battle. Now you feel responsible for him.
That's right, Lieutenant Dan. Now you got to go help him cook some shrimp.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wiggle room in some of these. Like I know what you're saying, Stefan. That like for instance, I'm just going to use the example of debt, criminal, and bounty are so very closely intertied.
They are.
If you're a criminal, maybe then you have a legal bounty, and those are great ways for you as a GM. If your players are continuously ignoring their their tab, they're just avoiding it at all costs, and you want to increase it. Maybe that debt isn't increased. Maybe that debt tab, they've got a debt tab and it's hit 15. Maybe next time they ignore their debt and like, I ain't paying that guy a penny. Okay, now they picked up an additional one for a bounty for 5.
Yeah.
Now they did say in there, I did read through this. It did say if your bar tab or I guess in this case, reading for Edge of the Empire, if your obligation hits 3 times and you haven't dealt with it, you can increase that obligation. You can increase that magnitude by 5 on it.
That's what I thought I read at one point. I was trying to look for it.
Or you could create a new one, like Tony said. More narratively speaking, it could be more of a bounty. You pick up a 5-point bounty.
Got all that debt out. Let's use Han Solo, the example. He had debt. He talked about his debts. He had debts. He had debts.
Mm-hmm.
He ignored it for movie 1 and most of movie 2, and Jabba had enough.
Then it turned into a bounty. Or
it turned into a bounty.
Actually, it didn't turn into one.
Too.
He still had the debt. He incorporated a second bar tab, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Probably a magnitude 20, to be honest with you, because you're saying Boba Fett, all of them.
Well, I mean, with anything with Han Solo, dial that shit up to 11. But anyhow,
yep, exactly.
Well, he also has a Wookiee, so he probably shares a little bit of debt too.
Yep. Yeah, and addiction and obsession are very similar too. Those are.
It can be.
Yeah, those kind of. Yeah, but it's one of those things. It's session 0.
The difference is between the two, though. Addiction is something that's going to cause you physical strain when you ignore it, and an obsession is something that's going to cause you mental distress when you're not allowed to pursue it.
Right.
Gotcha.
What do you mean I can't work on my maps for my campaign?
Exactly.
What do you mean I can't write my novel? I've been spending 16 weeks writing these memoirs. I'm almost done.
Yeah.
Well then. Well, okay. So I think we're good to kind of end our main segment here. Let's go into some. We're gonna have a different advantageous threats this time, and
a little bit.
Let's roll up some bar tabs, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, welcome to Advantageous Threats. This is where we build, roll, and narrate some dice results on some random skill checks for our entertainment and hopefully for yours normally. However, today we're going to shake, rattle, and roll, and we're going to simulate the bar tab part of character creation for 3 sample character concepts.
Yep.
And I'm trying to find my percentile dice here.
You know what?
But
I think I'll go first because I'm actually going to pick mine, and then you guys can roll yours.
Okay. Now, Chris, you're going to pick yours, but Stefan and I are going to talk as the GMs how we would incorporate that.
Yeah.
And help you flesh it out.
Sounds good to me. Okay, so I am making a Torakesh, a moose, or a Moosatar lumberjack. And you know what? I am going to be selecting the oath. I am taking an oath, and it's the oath of the Sequoia. If they stand behind you, protect them. If they stand beside you, respect them. If they stand against you, defeat them. And
cut them down.
Yeah, and you know what? This one is going to be... This is what he's all about. And I would like to... I would probably increase this as much as I could to maybe depending how many players.
With 3 players,
with 3 players,
everyone would start with a rating of 15.
Oh yeah, yeah, that would make it pretty interesting if I make it up to a 30 for sure. And the problem with
you wouldn't be able to make it up to a 30. You would either add 10 to it or 5 to it. You could take it as high as a 25.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, so I'd take it to a 25. I'd add 10 to it. And now whether it's I'd probably take the extra 10 XP for sure.
Yeah, that's a serious oath.
But here's something. How would I buy down my bar tab? Would I want to?
Well,
I would.
Here's the thing. Your bar tab is an oath, but it's how seriously does that influence you? Now you're starting out like a starting paladin right? You're that Order of the Sequoia. You've been secluded in the woods
Yes.
forever, as long as you can know, studying the way of the lumberjack.
Exactly.
And now you're thrust into a party of 3 individuals, and you have these other people who are going to morally conflict you.
Well, that's it.
And
Well,
maybe they'll wear that down through
placing
teaching
you in
that.
right.
placing you in awkward situations. And
Well, as far as I'm concerned, they are an order, but it's more of a, you protect the people that can't protect themselves. You stand beside your brothers, and you defeat your enemies. Now, whether it's morally questionable, these enemies, are they really my enemies, or are we just going to go smoke these guys because you need to steal something? That would be those moments that I'd be like, well, do I though?
How exactly do you defeat them? Is it by blood, or just
Exactly.
or is
Another
it?
way.
There are other ways to defeat them. Just intimidate them and drive them off, or make them your friends by convincing them of how wrong they are.
Mm-hmm.
Another way to provide that as a conundrum is the second precept there. If they stand beside you, respect them. Perhaps there are elements of your party that you find reprehensible because of their behavior, but because they're considered their party, they're your brethren, they have to stand beside you. That may cause your oath to feel questioned and go down.
True.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah,
like
maybe
that.
your friend has an addiction, and how he handles it, you're not too sure that's right.
True.
And I think in the case of a personal oath, I like prime example is a great way to think of the oath. I think back to now all of us have read the Dragonlance books, right? We've all read the Dragonlance Chronicles. I think of the Knights of Solamnia, the Stern Brightblade. At the very beginning, that character is very rigid. He's I'm going to do this, or I will die defending that ideal.
Very black and white, if you will. Right.
Yeah.
However,
right or wrong.
It's the people around him that allowed him to see nuance and fill in the blanks that his code did not fill in.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that he had a Kender and a dwarf and a half elf and a semi-evil mage as friends.
Neutral.
That
Neutral to start with.
I said semi-evil. Those were his friends, and they helped him see the world as shades of gray. He filled in the blanks that his oath couldn't kind of fill in. And that's how your oath will fluctuate as a player and as a GM, and how you're going to challenge that is those ups and downs are going to be those moments where your oath is personally challenged or when it's externally challenged.
Yep. Yeah. Cool.
Good.
I like it.
Oh, I like it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Now I got to find
it.
I got to find it.
All right, you want me to go next?
Or would you rather I go? I don't care.
I will go. I've got my dice app here ready. I'm going to bring the percentage dice. All right. So I am expanding on a character I used on a previous Advantageous Threat. Serena Kucheri, an Aquilar mind diver, aka a psi hacker.
Nice.
I'm only drinking water. Jeez. And I will be rolling randomly. So let's go for it. I got a 31.
31 is going to be a bounty.
Oh,
that's
nice.
Cool. Yeah, she was a character that, when Tony ran us through the scenario, she tried to hack at a poor scientist's mind. So maybe someone didn't like her trying that. Maybe put out a bounty on to find her after we made off with all the information.
Here's a question. You rolling this popped the question into a question about our setting. Are there psi cops? Like a police force that
depends on the society. Remember, the
True.
bar itself jumps from world to world. In some worlds, maybe there are.
True.
In others, maybe not.
Maybe hacking the mind of a scientist in that society that we went to in that Advantageous Threats is what caused you, like you said, caused the bounty on you.
That's it.
You hacked his mind, and that's a no-no. You can't.
No,
that's
exactly.
Like, yeah.
We had to do it because of information that he had. But yeah,
we had to make a freaking brew.
Well, yeah.
So then, player and GM, we work together to determine what that organization is.
Yep.
Let's say there is an organization. In that particular setting, this was a place where people went to. This was a mental asylum where the guy was kept.
Yep.
Maybe there is a overall psychic authority in that particular world.
Yeah.
That is out to protect the sovereign people's rights to their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we flesh that organization out. Now, if that organization exists in the source material, which in our setting it is still nebulous and not fully fleshed out, grab something that exists, and use it, or as a GM, create something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. A bounty for using your mind.
Yep.
Very nice.
Violated somebody.
I have decided I have a character concept for a Zszree bouncer, who is, the big beetle who's capable of breathing fire.
Nice.
He has a penchant for losing his temper.
All right, what is this?
So
I'm
going to be rolling randomly.
I'm guessing debt. Come on, man. Roll debt.
Addiction.
04.
So, in this case, he's a bouncer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a penchant for losing his temper. This particular guy is a masochist. His addiction is he loves to bleed.
Nice. He likes to just pick fights and have people.
He likes pain. He's addicted to it.
Interesting. Well,
and because he's a big dude, he's always trying to pick fights with other big dudes so that somebody will make him bleed.
All right, here you go, Tony. I have it. I have a mechanic for your character because addiction, like we said, right. you need setback dice on your skill checks. If you haven't taken damage in a combat, you are going to be taking setback.
Oh yeah,
like maybe 2. Okay. And then
starts out with 2.
Starts off with 2. Once you've taken damage, you've taken a wound, not strain. You need to bleed,
right.
You said. You take a wound, you're down to 1. When you take a crit, it goes away completely.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I would play that to the hilt.
Or if your wound threshold is maybe either... Okay, so that second setback die is either taken away if you're over half your wound if you've taken over half your wound threshold, or if you've taken a crit.
Dude, I would play that to the hilt. I would love that. That would be, that's great. A character who's got a bloodlust, who's addicted to getting beat up. Yeah. He just loves feeling pain, makes him feel alive.
Right.
That's it. And the Zol have natural armor, so you imagine they get hit, they soak everything. Come on! I didn't even feel that. Come on!
Stop trying to hit me and hit me.
Yeah.
So, I already have a name for this guy. His name is going to be Shock Baylor.
Nice.
He's just a demon in the ring. Shock Baylor.
All right, I might have to come up with an Advantageous Threats for you guys then, with Shock Baylor or something. So
Shock,
that's cool.
I think, would probably, being a bouncer, he doesn't need a lot of gear. Maybe take 5 extra for the 5 extra XP.
Oh, I see.
So, what about you, Stefan? We didn't talk about what would you do with yours to increase it.
Probably increase it by the 10, and I would take the both XP And credits.
A little better gear and a little more XP.
Well, that's it. She needs a bit some construct and stuff to get better at her psychic mind diving anyway.
Nice.
And of course, she needs to be good at it too. So
True.
A bit of XP
Very true.
that way.
Very true.
So, as a GM for our session, then we would build the table for these 3 players.
That's it.
With, Chris's
The
Amos
lumberjack.
Moose Tarp, the lumberjack.
1 to 25. 1 to 25 for
oath.
me. Yep.
It'd be 1 through 25.
Yep.
And that'd be oath. And then 26 through 50 would be
Serena.
Mm-hmm.
And that is her bounty.
Bounty, yes.
And then 51 through 70, so the group threshold being 70 for our group.
So,
for shock,
yeah,
would be his addiction.
Right.
And then,
So-
Homie, why don't you roll and see as a GM what our first session, which one would be brought in?
Well, that would be awesome if I had my dice out, but no, I don't.
it's highly likely to do it.
Hey, you didn't roll.
I didn't
an
roll, so I'm going to roll
obligation
for
like
this.
we did. So it's
course.
not an advantageous threat unless we all roll dice.
You are correct. All right, here we go. So who's going to pop?
Right? It's
Oh,
likely to
somebody's
pop.
is going to. I rolled a 24. So it would
24.
seem the lumberjack, his
Yeah.
oath, something's going to be stressing him about his oath. And I rolled a 24, so his strain threshold would go down by 2, and your guys would go down by 1.
By
because I'm
one
like-
each. Yeah.
That's right, because I'm like, you got to get
Now,
Yeah.
if you had rolled an 11 or a
Yeah.
22,
Yeah,
yours would have gone down by 4,
yeah,
and ours would have gone down by 2.
that's right. Yep. Because
And
Serena keeps
with
on
us having
saying-
having a 70,
Yeah.
as a GM,
Yeah, it's going to pop off and
Let me see. There is a table. There is a table on page in Edge of the Empire, table
Yeah.
9.3, page 308. So 70. It'd be too hot for most politicians to deal with publicly. Few are willing to risk to do so privately. However, easier to access underworld connections and influential figures. Easier to make close ties to personally known underworld figures. So that could be interesting.
yeah.
so that's automatically a challenge to our Order of the Sequoia Lumberjack,
yeah.
who's working for this such honorable organization that politicians won't even talk to him.
Well, yeah, true.
Yeah, members of his own organization like, what are you doing associating with these lowlives?
Somebody's
They're my friend.
and they're my friends, and somebody's got to protect them.
Well, that's it.
You know, somebody's got to stand beside them and protect them. That's what I do. That's what we do.
There we
Very
go.
nice.
I see that. Yeah, I see it as more of like a samurai bushido kind of thing. You're taking an oath, personal oath, that you're standing by your friends, good or bad.
Mhm.
Standing by them, regardless of
That's it. Exactly.
often-
Might cost you a little bit, but hey.
how often. No matter how many times Mr. Baylor there asked me, just cut me with your axe, please.
Yeah, and I will be incorporating a lot of these same rules from this section, but it was good that you mentioned that chart, Chris.
Yeah.
The section of the book where it talks to GMs about how to use it, how to incorporate it, what does that threshold mean? All those things are covered in the GM section of the book, page 307 to page 311 in the Edge of the Empire book. If you have it, if not, those will be incorporated into our section of our document in the tab section. There'll be like a player's part and the GM's part, whether it's a sidebar or whatever, but it will be included in there.
Yeah.
Since we're reskinning the entire mechanic over to our system, we'll incorporate our version of it in the document itself.
That's right. Excellent.
And there we go. Well, I think that's all we had on Advantageous Threats, right, guys?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Pretty much in a nutshell. So there you go. So that was our slightly modified Advantageous Threats, but we still managed to roll some dice.
Yes, we did roll something.
Excellent job, guys.
All right. Well, everybody, that's our show. Night is short and sweet, but full of crunchy and narrative goodness. We hope you enjoyed that. So our next show, which is not going to be for 3 weeks, because of some of my taking some personal time myself, but I will be running the next actual play in the salvage sci-fi junk punk setting with Tony, Stefan, and a couple buddies of mine from my Tuesday night face-to-face, though we're Skyping because of COVID, game group. So we'll be doing that in about 3 weeks. So we're looking forward to that. So, Stefan, do we have any feedback?
Yes, we have a bit of listener feedback.
Excellent.
From one of our listeners called Bara J. So he starts with, "Hello, Tony and Chris. I love the podcast and I love the Genesys system. I've been playing tabletop RPGs for 25 years, but have not been this excited to play since I was a teenager. Nice. I've been tearing through the Genesys books and reading them cover to cover, which is rare for me. I'm emailing because I have a question regarding starting favors in the Genesys Android Shadow of the Beanstalk book. During step 6 of character creation, you have the option of selecting a favor owed in exchange for more starting credits or XP. However, what is not clear is if those XP are applied before or after spending XP on characteristics. So basically, are they part of starting XP or not?
Okay.
If before, then you could have higher characteristics, usually only allowed by taking dedication. The argument for this is that taking the starting favor can give you starting XP, which is clearly different than earned XP.
Correct.
If it's after, then it would be applied as earned XP after creation, like the XP table or page 44 of the core book, that section. Mm-hmm. The argument for this is that determining favors is step 6 of character creation. Step 4 is invest experience points. And step 5 is determine derived attributes that have already been completed and suggest that those XP are already locked in. It is Genesys, and the GM could pick whichever method that she wanted. My thought was to let clones take the XP before, since they have the fewest XP to spend on characteristics and arguably have the most likely reason to owe a big favor. They were freed from indentured servitude, after all. All other archetypes would apply the favor after the favor XP after purchasing characteristics. If there is an official way to apply this rule, then I would like to know. What are your thoughts? So roll them bones and remember the rule of cool. Thanks, guys. Bara from Philadelphia. Girl gamers rock. Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. I have a couple of them myself. That they are awesome. My daughters are awesome.
There we go.
So, Bara, being our first lady who has written into the show, thank you very much.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. We do have an official answer, though, too. Tony, take it away.
Yeah, so official answer is that on page 53 of the Shadow of the Beanstalk, it states right here that the additional XP or credits worth of gear that you gain, these are added onto your character's total starting XP or your total starting credits and can therefore be spent before the games begin. And so it's
for all characters.
Yep, it's starting XP, just like it was when we talked at the top of our main segment here that the starting XP gained from the pay your tab mechanic. This was incorporated over from obligation. This is where it started for Genesys, and the narrative dice system was the obligation mechanic. It increases your starting XP, therefore it can be used to spend to increase your characteristics. and it cannot be used to create to increase your skills beyond rank 2.
Correct. Right. Yeah, I would almost reorganize those steps and put favors step 4, then invest step 5, and then do your attributes step 6. I believe that's why they might have put obligation 1, step 1 in Star Wars. But I'd say during your starting, your session 0, you can talk about the favors, the organizations that you want to bring into, that you want to mess around with and have ties to in Shadows of the Beanstalk, and talk about that early on in the concepts before you even pick whether you're a clone or or a clone bounty hunter or investigator or whatever. But yeah, certainly what Tony said, definitely use to invest your experience points during character creation.
There you go. Well, there you go, Jay. Answer found, and I hope that helps you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, if you would like to reach out to us, much like Barajay has, you can contact us at findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. You can reach out to Stefan or myself on Finding the Narrative at Finding the Narrative on Facebook. You can talk to all 3 of us at Finding the Narrative on Mayway, or you can speak so lonely to Stefan on Twitter with @FTN_Genesis.
I may be alone on Twitter, but I'm never lonely.
No, I'm saying if you out there are lonely, talk to Stefan.
Wow. Oh, definitely.
Whoa.
I'll brighten up your day.
That's right.
Rainbows for everybody.
Or Stephanie. Right. He might answer as Stephanie or Zandra.
You never know.
We'll see. You never know.
But whatever you do, be sure to recommend us to your friends, family, uncles, aunts, your responsibilities out there.
That's your responsibility and obligation.
That's your bar tab. That's right.
And that is at Finding the Narrative Podcast on Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, and more.
Yeah. It's an obligation, but it's only 5, so it's not so bad.
This is Tony saying, let's tell a story and spend them story points.
And this is Stefan saying, dare to ask for those boost dice.
That's right.
You couldn't today.
No, you couldn't. But you can always remember the rule of cool. Always pay your bar tab, especially if it means slicing up the big fucking fire-breathing bug so that he doesn't have a conniption. But you know what? Just have fun doing it, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast, is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. Copyright 2020, all rights reserved.